Little did I know how hard it was going to be. But
cannabis isn't easy.
No, it's not easy. And if you don't love it,
Yeah.
but there is like this romantic thing of like,
It's cool.
you know,
Yeah.
it's like
vertical agriculture.
vertical agriculture, you know, it's like I do feel like the product does help people. There is a medical aspect. It's never, you never met someone that's like, hey, I started drinking and it changed my life.
Yeah.
But like I come across so many people that are like, man, I remember I had a meeting with the guy with MS and he was just like literally shaking. Went outside, smoked a joint, and like it stopped his shake. I was like, wow, that was like when I first got in the industry, and that blew me away. And then just like seeing my dad, who just helps him sleep, and all their friends in their 70s now, and it's just really helpful. And it's like, yeah, there's a recreational aspect of people have fun, but there is something more, and there's a culture to it that, you know, ties to music, and it's kind of a sexy industry. It lured a lot of people in, kind of flushed a lot of people out. Now the people are here that I think really do love it. And I see a huge opportunity. Even now, I think it's like, you know, just keep pressing on the gas. So that's really our mentality, is just keep pressing.
So I was just curious, out of the Cookies asset light model that you guys have been so successful with for, I don't even know, is it a decade?
Our first store is about to be 6, and we started a year prior to that. So our company's about to turn 7.
Gotcha. I was just curious, what have you guys learned by, you know, you've got that brand name of Cookies, one of the most iconic brands.
Yep.
You know, we almost had a deal with you guys at the Florida location with Brandon. We really like Brandon, partner. But what have you learned by being on the operator side that you think that is important to understand about this industry? Because you guys are across in both limited license, unlimited license states, and you've got a international brand name.
Yeah.
You know, I'm curious what your takeaway is how things are evolving.
As things evolve, it really comes down to execution. I mean, you can have the brand, you can have the star power, the sexiness, all the things, but like, unless the people on the ground that are actually operating, it's kind of whittled away. Like the customer traffic flow, it doesn't necessarily translate just because it's Cookies. Like you actually have, you know, if your prices aren't good, your deals aren't good, your customer loyalty, your customer service, keeping your expenses in check. I mean, it all goes out the door. And so the name, and I think a lot of people have seen that, like famous people have come in and tried to, like, unless those people are willing to be in the stores, be at events, like live and breathe it. Like anyone famous, I would just say, like, you know, if you want to invest, like invest, but don't be a puppet. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
And so that's probably the biggest thing I've learned,
Yeah.
is it comes down to execution.
And, you know, in the model that you guys have, because you guys are not vertically integrated, how does that affect your model? What are the pros and cons about being not vertically integrated and having that flexibility to go to whoever might be the best producer?
Depends on your market, though.
Yeah, Florida, we're vertically integrated because you have to be.
Yep.
So that is one thing. California, I mean, because prices have gotten so cheap, and like 100 milligrams of gummies that we can get to our door for a price that is like, if we went and built up, the math just doesn't work.
Yep.
And so I think as you get more competitive in markets like Colorado, or I was just out there last week, I mean, you can buy indoor pounds for $400. Like, good luck growing it for $400.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the market. And it's also greatly expensive to do that. Operating, it's not just like, hey, I'm going to pop up a grow and all of a sudden it's going to work. Like there is like, it's
Massive execution risk.
massive execution risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're kind of glad that we had this plan to go vertical in a bunch of places. Thank God we pulled back, and really just kind of cut our teeth in Florida, which is probably like the biggest test of a vertical market. You know, and then there's still kind of what's going to happen with interstate commerce and all those different things. But I ultimately think being vertical, or eventually being vertical in California, I think can be highly useful. But the other kind of caveat to that is the customers in California, they're very, like, there's a lot of loyalty and then not loyalty, and it's very price driven. But if you don't have, say, you know, pick a Jeter or a Stizzy, like if you don't have that or have what they want, they're walking out. And so you can only force feed your customers so much. So if you're vertical, unless you have the right products, the right mix, the right brands, you can almost shoot yourself in the foot by trying to shove too much of your own product down that customer's throat, because it's almost a turn off. Or you can do it to an extent. Like, I think you could probably, 20, 30% of your sales, like, but anything beyond that, you're starting to get into a territory that is only a few can succeed.
Yeah.
And what did you learn in the vertical integration of Florida when you pivoted from being the asset light model to being vertically integrated there?
There I think is pretty cool because there's no wholesale market, so you're basically swimming naked, and there's and then timing how much production you have and how much retail you can open, not doing too much retail or too much production. So I would say there is a different case because you don't have the ability to sell to other license holders, and
That's true.
So it's almost cool too because then there's ways to be unique and differentiate, and so you're kind of out there swimming on an island.
Until you just said that, I never thought about that. So are the vertically integrated companies not cross-selling brands to each other?
They can't.
And every brand that signs up in Florida, they're not.
I'm in the industry. I just never thought about it.
Yeah,
That is a tough.
there's exclusive relationships because you're spending 50, 100, 200 million building out all this infrastructure in Florida, depending on who you are, maybe more, and on the bigger guys. And so they're signing up California brands, they're signing up brands from wherever, but it's only exclusive deals. So all these products are exclusive to them. And so, we're still smaller. We just opened up our 17th store in Florida. We hope to get to about 25 by middle of next year, but we have unique genetics. We have differentiation. We're kind of like, I'd say top 3 quality wise, but then there's still so much room to grow. And then also, I think what we underestimate a little bit is just the availability of all the different SKUs, how important that was.
Yep.
We would have probably done it a little bit differently as far as building out certain manufacturing components that we didn't. We went all solventless at the beginning and flour. And ultimately we should have done distillate. We should have done BHO lab for the resin and then kept the rosin and the flour and had more SKUs for everybody. But you live and learn. It's just like
It's
a
tough
process.
though, because those products in that market are different. Where distillate in other markets, it's just a tough way to go. So I can see how that.
Yeah, we were in California. People were already getting sick of distillate. They were onto the resin. There, it's like 80% of the vape market is distillate. And you're like, oh shit, we should have done that. But, now we have it. So we're trending up, and we're incrementally gaining market share. A lot of people are losing market share, and so it's and then it's not even rec. So there's about 1 million patients. There's more stores opening than patients that are signing up. They're very strict. You have to have like a Florida ID, an address, a utility bill. So you can't just be from, Atlanta and be in town at Disney World and go shop, unless you're a THCA hemp farm. And then you can just shop and cross state lines and wholesale and do everything and have cool packaging where we have like white opaque packaging, different story for a different day. But if rec gets approved next year, it's going to be a game changer. 120 million tourists. It'll 2, 3, 4x like every one of our stores.
From the brand's perspective of cookies, how do you see the international market, and are you guys able to control the quality of product to the level that you really need to in those international markets?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I think cookies went too. I think you're seeing like different strategies, and I think cookies probably went too wide and too far in too many places. Whereas like you see like a Jeter, who I think is doing a great job, and they've been very selective, and they own their markets. They're not necessarily doing licensing deals, although I think they just did one. But so it's just a different philosophy. I think cookies was like, hey, let's just go as wide as we can. Let's be the biggest name out there. It doesn't always translate, and so I think from the perspective of cookies, I think there is still a lot of quality work to be done because they've gone so fast and so far. And every partner you sign up, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, especially those international markets. Do you think that if cookies was able to control their own IP, their own brands, their own SOPs for the product in a way that was 100% exactly similar in California, what you do to international markets, how big of a differentiator would that make for those international markets where you're just going in there and the brand's there and you're trying to buy the best quality product you can in some of these international markets?
Yeah, I think the international markets, I think they're advanced because they're advanced and they're not advanced because you can ship from Canada, Israel, wherever, to all these different medical markets, but it's very medical. It's dispensed via pharmacies. The packaging is just like Florida. It's very boring. And so I think from the quality perspective, yes. I think from the perspective of how it's dispensed and like just, and then the illicit market is kind of so key.
Gotcha. So I think one thing that my takeaway of what you're saying there is that the Cookies brand name, which what you've got there is not, you don't get that branding, that you're not able to use that full level of branding that you've got that normally you would have. And that's an important, you might have the quality, but nobody really knows Cookies.
The packaging and just all the fun stuff. I mean, even in Florida, it's hard because you're only allowed to have these like white opaque packaging. Inside of our store, our visual merchandising, like we'll have the corresponding California Mylar bag will be on display visually so they can see that. Our marketing on our online websites and all that stuff, that you can see our branding, but they leave the store with like this very boring package. And so that, and then, it's problematic because, there's, for every dispensary, there's a hemp shop, and those guys are basically getting their weed from California licensed facilities that is slipping out via the intoxicating hemp market, how they do it. And so those guys can have whatever packaging they want. They can be fun, killing the children, all these different things. They pay, what is it? It's like, $650 a year for their hemp license.
Right.
They can wholesale to other stores. We pay $1.5 million every 18 months.
Yep.
Can't wholesale, can't have the packaging.
Yep.
They have drinks. We can't even have drinks. So it's like, until all that stuff gets fixed, it's going to be this like very fragmented market, which I think creates opportunities, like what you guys obviously see and trying to build that platform. And I kudos to you guys for like seeing that. Obviously takes, cojones, this is not like for the faint of heart, but there is a huge opportunity right now where there's such a disconnect, and it's anyone's fair game. I mean, it's like, it's still wide open. And so I think right now, I wish, part of me is like, I wish I were coming out of the ground with the money that we had now, because you could mop up.
I think that's where everybody is that if we could start today with a clean balance sheet, we would mop up, because we've learned over time, which is an asset too, and money, we've learned how to dial it in right.
Totally.
And so that's kind of some of the opportunity that we have with some of the assets that we've been able to put together, that we've got a clean balance sheet. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that, Henry.
Yeah. It's kind of the old adage in the restaurant space that the third owner is the one that makes the money.
That didn't pay for all the CapEx.
The first one spends the CapEx. The second one works out the operating risk, and the third one actually gets to step in and run the business that is durable. And I think that's kind of the phase we're in for cannabis. You guys run a really interesting business because you've got basically a private MSO that operates vertical in some markets, not in others. It has a brand portfolio under the Cookies name, or writes the brand portfolio under the Cookies name. But I agree with you. I think for a much smaller amount of money that was spent in round one and round two, you can consolidate the industry. And the maturity of the industry is that instead of investing venture dollars into the 10-year growth story that's based on a story as opposed to underwritten financials, this iteration is generating cash flow. What is the value of that cash flow? How can we reinvest those cash flows to continue to build scale? And it's much more of a private equity roll-up model than the early stage kind of venture model that we led to. You guys being one of the few that actually was able to create something durable. But for every one of you guys, there's 10 that lit the money on fire and is available for sale.
And just people in the early days, people doing crazy things with the capital. I mean, it's like we're so stringent. I mean, like spending and travel. Like we're just like so disciplined when it comes to that. And we're not like just running it up on stupid things.
It's a great point. I think the early days, people thought cannabis was as new, as exciting. People didn't really know what it was, and I think maybe the opinion was it was going to be like this luxury goods market with these sky high profits forever. And the reality is, it's not dissimilar to other high volume industries, right? Like where operating on the margin is what execution, as you were talking about earlier, is really what drives the results. Like it does have this culture behind it. It does have this integration with music, but really it's agriculture, which agriculture has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. Like that is, a volume game about doing things right. And then it's manufacturing and it's retail. It's not necessarily new. We're just having to apply best practices to a new industry.
Yeah, I think it's just convenience based. I mean, a lot of it's location, customer service. Obviously, there's a lot of options. Where there's not a lot of options, you'll do better. You can hold margins. Where there is a lot of options, margins get more compressed, more competitive. But it comes down. It's very like C-store, liquor store versus like the Apple store kind of situation. That's where you alluded to like the luxury end of it. It's very much just convenient. Like how fast can I get in and out? Can I provide a good service to these people, and do I have what they want?
Right.
And it's like you meet those three things, and it's easier said than done because, for every, if you're being successful, you're opening up more, and then that takes capital, and then there's not capital for something else. If you're a successful brand, you need to go open up markets, and in a world in which everything is cash crunch, even the most successful brands, they don't have money because they just spent $5 million opening New York, so it's like, there's just not enough capital to go around for everyone to do what they want to do. And I think it's like right now, it's like a musical chair situation. I've never seen it right now where like pretty much every chain in California is talking to every chain in California about like, hey, what can we do to maybe come together, merge, partner, whatever. It's at an all-time high right now.
Yeah. And I think our view, and I've talked about this with Brandon a bit, is that California is the biggest market in the world, full stop.
Absolutely.
Right. And it will stay that way. And the other markets that are not facing the competition of California are not facing the competition of California because they're propped up by regulatory capture, and that gets corroded over time. So our view is, and this is why everyone's talking, is the operators can cannibalize each other for 10 more years, or there are value add opportunities for the best operators to come together and build a bigger platform, and that platform then owns the biggest market in the world, and likely is what scales to the other markets as they inevitably become
Absolutely.
more competitive.
You can use your learnings that you got here, and in Michigan's the same way. It's very hyper competitive. I mean, I freaking love the operators out there, like the cream of the crop operators in Michigan and California. I mean, you can definitely translate that to any other market, and if it's an easier market, you're going to be more effective there because you're using the disciplines that you learned.
I'm curious because you have operations under. I know that you don't do all of Cookie's stuff, but I'm just curious relative to the operations in California relative to some of the other limited license states that you're in. Do you think that the guys in those limited license stores that you already have the Cookies operation with, and the guys that are the Cookies at the California Unlimited, do you think that that the California guys could outperform them just because they're in so much more of a hyper competitive market, or because you've cross-pollinated both best practices that you've got them pretty much up to speed?
I mean, I see every state has, there's always like the struggle, and it's even in California where like everyone's got this hyper local, like there's like a NorCal group, or like everyone, or like someone that's only focused on Michigan. And there's like these hyper-focused local guys that you're having to go up in every one of these markets. And so that's kind of hurt us a little bit because we went so wide. I mean, we opened up stores in like 14 different states. We've gotten out of a few states, but it's every state, whether it's, pick a state, there's always just that
hyper-focused market guy that controls it and has controlled it forever.
It's very community-driven. I mean, you need to... Like not everyone loves the California thing. Like you have to do it in such a way where they don't feel like you're just California invading them.
Gotcha.
And that's been probably the biggest learning.
Even California, and I talked to a few other operators recently. When you think about like the culture of cannabis, the big MSO model really never clicked in California, right? The idea that you're going to come in and every store is going to look like a CVS, right?
Yeah.
And you walk in and that doesn't really click in California. The local economy really drives store results.
Well,
you can have consistent best practices, but the feel of your store really has to be kind of localized.
You got to be localized. You got to have people that work at your store that are tied into the local community. You got to have that like that cheers mentality where everyone knows your name kind of thing. And even the like, unless it's like the top, unless you're Stizzy and Jeter, or maybe like two other brands, like not every brand hits in every store.
Yeah.
So like we have stores down by the Mexican border all the way to Napa, and it's a completely different ball game in every single one of those stores. So learning all those different things, and also, so I'd say about 70% of our menu is about the same, but you gotta tailor each little market. And between LA and San Diego is vastly different.
Completely.
So it's not every state's like that. A lot of Ohio and other places are probably more. It's all the same.
Yep.
But California is very, very diverse.
Well, you've got the most sophisticated consumer in the world,
Yeah.
given the size of the market. And I think it's to use a hockey analogy, if you skate to where the puck is going, consumers in other markets will just get more and more sophisticated over time. I think we'll see the same patterns develop.
For sure, it's happening. I see that too. And yeah, because people in California have been, some of them have been shopping at shops since '99. The first medical shops up in the Bay. So there's a lot more. They're a lot more sophisticated for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.